Is Dr. Trita Parsi. He's a Middle East specialist at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies. Thanks very much for coming in. President Bush there saying that diplomacy is the preferred option. It's pretty much the only option, isn't it, realistically?
It pretty much is the only option, but unfortunately, thus far, the Bush administration has been very reluctant to really actively pursue it, because diplomacy doesn't mean that the United States is talking to the Russians and talking to the Europeans. Diplomacy should mean that the United States is an active and full partner in the negotiations with the Iranians. And thus far, the Bush administrations have rejected every opportunity to be able to take a full participatory role in that.
We're constantly being asked whether the kind of rhetoric we hear now is similar to the rhetoric we heard in the run-up to the war with Iraq. Do you feel that Washington is heading in that direction or not?
Unless the United States agrees to talks with Iran, I fear, and a lot of people are fearing, that 12 months from now we will see one out of two scenarios. Either we will see a North Korea scenario in which the Iranians are aggressively going ahead with their nuclear program and there's nothing the West can do, or we will see an Iraq scenario in which the United States does take military action and leaves almost everyone wishing that it hadn't.
And the meetings that are being held at the moment in New York, do they suggest to you which option are we headed towards? I mean, in a sense, they've exposed more differences than they have brought together the international community.
What's taking place at the UN is really showing that unless the United States itself takes a participatory role in the negotiations, we're not going to be able to see any diplomatic solutions. The two most critical states in this equation are the United States and Iran. And as long as they're not talking to each other, it's going to be very difficult to find a peaceful and diplomatic solution, regardless of what the rhetoric is on either side. And again, when the president of Iran is sending a letter to the U.S., even if that letter in itself didn't contain much, it gives the impression that the Iranians are open for talks and that the United States is not, and that's not helping the U.S.
And isn't it also a situation where the U.S. just doesn't have the clout up at the United Nations anymore to get the Russians and the Chinese on board with what it wants?
Without talking to the Iranians first, it's going to be very difficult for the United States to convince its allies to agree to very punitive and costly sanctions when they can turn around and say, but hold on, why don't you try talking to the Iranians first?
Dr. Trita Parsi, thanks very much for joining us here in the
Thank you.
studio. South Africa's former Deputy President Jacob Zuma was cleared of